Hey everybody, this is Mike Venus. I'm back. Oh, check out the store Cause No Fears. Be stellar. I'm gonna leave the link in the description box. We sell hats, bomber jackets, joggers, leggings for the ladies, t-shirts, and other accessories. So check it out. They sponsor this video. Go cop one. This is really nice. Right? Oh, and if you one of them type of people who got a big ass head, like your boy, these hats really fit well. Typically on a snapback, I'll have to wear it like on the last two, but obviously this is pretty big, so that's very encouraging. And yeah, so great quality. So check it out, and that's our logo. Cause no fears. Be stellar. All right. So let's break this down, right? Caught some hostility the last week about my setup. And like I said before, this channel is really about ideas. That wasn't finalized, but what I realized is that very quickly that with my set, I ran into the issue that most people do, and that is that you buy a lot of separate pieces and then you think about, oh, I'm going to put them all together and we're going to work it and it's going to work well. That's not always the case. And this spawns this video about multifaceted gear and specialized gear. Coming from a background playing sports like football, soccer, basketball, recreational, track, things like that. Hockey, etc. You kind of understand this concept, but when it comes to music, sometimes you forget. But I ran into this very, very quick. So the gear I use or I purchase is my hairbrush looper board, which is an amazing pedal, but it's a big ass thing. I look at it as a huge sampler that basically whatever audio you can feed into it, if you want to use something like your phone, you got the aux connector. You have 4 inputs that you can send XR quarter inputs into it. You have a mic. You have 4 outputs for your monitors, speakers, whatever. Very powerful, even a headphone jack. But I don't use it like a guitarist will use it. Now, I bought this initially because I play guitar, but my guitar was down, and I got into a situation that affected my coordination between my hands, which guitar requires a lot of syncing between your right and left hand, which has dramatically affected the way I play it. So that kind of led me to the second piece of gear I bought, which is my MPC Live 2. Now, like I stated before, I bought the MPC Live 2 not having any knowledge of the Akai Force. And the Akai Force came out in 2019. I want to say I bought this in 2020. Yes, I did. I bought the MPC Live 2 in 2020, and it was more content on it on YouTube. So, getting your first piece of gear that's totally hardware, separating you from the computer, or in this case, my iOS device, which I was using my phone to produce music, and using a MPK MIDI special edition 2 keyboard / pad / knob MIDI controller to control, the patterns that I put on my phone, and my phone being the sound modular using GarageBand. But the quality of the sounds aren't really, I mean, they're getting better now. They're getting actual legit producers, so you can check that out to, you know, supply their samples or their sounds to it that you can use. So, you know, if you still use GarageBand or you are a main iOS type producer, if that's the proper word, I don't know. But I'm just saying I use that. And then I moved up to getting the MPC because being a musician, you're used to touching things and getting more expression. Plus the sound quality in the MPC or the Akai products is very good. It has a very professional sound compared to GarageBand's sounds. So that's what I did. I moved up to that, and I found out very quickly, even though this is a groove box, or they call it a groove box, um, it is very limiting. Meaning, like, yes, you can play chords and play your melodies and bass lines on and drum patterns on the pads, but the workflow is totally different from GarageBand, which is more suited to a clip-based workflow, which led me to purchase the Launchpad Pro Mach 3 to pair up with the MPC, because on that I can play chords. I can use the 4-track sequencer to program my chord progressions and my melodies, bass lines, etc., drum patterns if I want. And I used it in those two combinations, and plus you got 8 customizable pages where you can go to Novation components and set up the different MIDI things, which is more compliable to work with Ableton and the Ableton software than with this device, unless you're using the 5-pin dumb MIDI connection, which I never did that connection with this. I always used it over USB, but it worked for a time. And then when the 3.0.5 update came on the Akai Force, I made the move and I purchased the Force. The Force is more suitable to my workflow. I really like it. It's similar to the Akai MPC Live 2, meaning, you know, you have the same, basically the same firmware, which is the software built for this hardware device. But this is farly, is that even a word? No, that's not a word, but okay, we're gonna roll it. It's far more suitable for it being the only thing in your studio. And plus the MPC gave me the ability to be more mobile. That's another reason why I purchased it. But I got this before the price shot back up. So that's why, you know, when I said I was making this my drum machine, a lot of people some people got offended, because they're looking at it now like, why would I spend $1,100 and some change to buy this just to be a drum machine when you can do everything with it? And that's true, you can do everything with the MPC with the connection of other MIDI controllers and MIDI devices. But with this I wouldn't need a launch pad or a keyboard or, you know, all those excessive things to do everything in this. And but this, just like all these pieces of gear I just mentioned, are multifaceted. And this kind of led to me speaking about this on this video, because you quickly realize when you start to develop your live set, and I want my live set to be similar to my production set, meaning the way I produce music, you really start to realize that it might just be best to have one multifaceted piece of gear that is capable of doing several things very, very well, so that it's more of a situational thing than to have a bunch of specialized things and vice versa. So in this case, in my setup, because I don't have a hardware synth, I'm using my MPC Live 2 as my sound modular as a synthesizer. Now, the Launchpad, initially I was using that to sequence 4 tracks on it to sequence the chords and the melody, bass line, and the layer. I use like a layer to do that, but I quickly realized that if I was going to use the customized pages to control certain parameters so I'm not doing excessive menu diving, which both of these machines will require a lot of excessive pushing buttons and shift things, it just got a little too overwhelming. So right now what I have the Launchpad basically being until I'll think later down on the road, maybe in a few weeks from now when I save up, probably get the MIDI Fighter Twisters. Because anytime you're using a soft synthesizer, not a hardware synth, because hardware synths typically have knobs, might have physical faders, and buttons, which you will want so you can have control over certain parameters, and you can change stuff up in real time. Soft synths don't have that. So I'm back to square one using MIDI controllers to control certain parameters and certain functions that would require me to do excessive menu diving on the MPC to control or change up different parameters on my synth. I'm using MIDI controllers. Right now I'm using just the Pro. I'm gonna MIDI map the Launchpad X later on until I get the MIDI Fighter Twister to do other things with that. But the argument that I'm getting, or the confusion that some people have with certain videos I do pertaining, speaking on the Force and then speaking on the MPC, is that they assume that I favor both, or I favor one over the other, which in this case, this all I have. I'm using them in a situational thing, meaning until I figure out what type of synthesizer I want to use and invest in, this is going to be a synth. And to some who are hardcore MPC people who aren't using their MPC as a synthesizer, might look at it as, why would you do that? You spent $1,200 and some change on this, and you're reverting it from being an all-in-one production center to now just being a synthesizer. And the effects that came with the latest update, the 2.10 on the MPC. Why not use the Force? Well, like I said, all this is still a work in progress, right? Now, I'm big on minimalistic approach and maximizing what you have. So what I plan on, what I did, I bought, which I already had one, I didn't even know I had it. I'm using the 5-pin dung MIDI cable, and I'm sending the MIDI out of the Force into the MPC to control the MPC in the sense of creating patterns, and I'll demonstrate. So for right now, what I have is my regular drum setup. So I'm using the 8 plugins on the Force, which that's what you given per project, as my drums like before. So here I have my kicks. Let's just sequence something real quick. Let's turn that up. All right, let's let's just make some patterns real quick. Right, and you just make a few patterns. Same with the snare. I prefer the snare, so a little basic stuff. Right. Okay, let me speed it up some. Let's do 100. So let's multiply that. Right. So I got a basic drum pattern going on. Let's go hi-hats. Start real simple. Right. Right. Just make some few patterns real quick. Right. 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 So you already know that. Drums, right? So what I did, I made 4 MIDI tracks, right? And what I did, I programmed them to control the sounds over here. So let's just make something really quick. And the other thing about this, they got different modes with the step sequencer. So I could change it. I'm gonna go to bars, and let's go to this, and we'll stay in Lydian. Now, what I could do, I can create some clips. Let's go 4 bars, and let's just do a simple chord progression. 1, 4, 4, 6, 5. Right? 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 So I can control that with my launch pad over here. Right? And let's make a bass line. Let's go 4 bars. So it's 1, 4. Well, let's go down 1. 1, 4, 6, 5. Right, and let's do a melody, and let's switch this to, let's do 16ths. I'm just gonna arpeggiate a chord. Right. 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 And that's how it worked. Now, I think this is a way better way of working. Like I said, MIDI fighter twister I think will come better in handy when controlling the parameters on the synths on the MPC. But overall, I like this rearrangement. Um, yeah, shit, I could jam, like make a bunch of patterns. Another thing that I was going to demonstrate is that I can color code this. So let's say, for an example, this track, the color is like a yellow, right? So we can go to launch, I can go to edit track, and I can literally change the color to some type of like yellow. We'll say probably like a canary. Same thing, canary, 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 right? Right, so all that's yellow, right? So you can see that. Now let's say if I wanted to, let's say in this track, go step sequencer, let's change the root note to, let me go G. I know that's purple. Right, so we're gonna go to G, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna make a 4-bar thing, and let's do this. So we're gonna do a 2, 2, 5, 1, 4. Two, 5, 1, 4, right? Chord progression. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna copy this to here, and then we're gonna copy this to here, and then what we're gonna do over here, we're gonna drop the bass notes. Right? Here, we're gonna go up. It's already transposed. And what we can do, we can change the sounds on the different synths. And we can start playing it and see how this works. So we got that bass going. Right? And then what we could do, stop this real quick. Let's change the colors to match the track or match the actual key it's in. We'll do, let's do violet, violet, violet. So what does that mean? That means basically when I play this, totally different key. I'm gonna let that play. Right, and then I'm gonna switch. Totally different key. So what that does, this gives me, the Force allows me to have the ability to compose, compose my melodic and harmonic things, chord progressions, bass lines, arpeggiator, chord, pad, and color code it to the particular key, which I don't think you could do this on the push or anything else. And then, like I said, I have my drum patterns set up, and I can basically just pick whichever one I want to do to accompany those particular sections of different chord progressions and different keys. So this right here, the Force, for right now, is my sequencer. It's also where I can arrange stuff, right? And this is basically the brain or the master of my setup. For right now, like I said, my MPC is the slave, or is just used as a sound modulator. And my Launchpad Pro Mach 3 and this X will be, Launchpad X will be control surfaces for basically parameters within the synth and even the effects. And then, like I said, when I purchased the MIDI Fighter Twister, that also will be added to control parameters in this as well. Yeah, so this is great. This setup right now, for what I have, this is great. And I'm sorry this is long, but hopefully this will kind of clear up some of the confusion on, you know, my setup. And like I said, it's ever changing because I still want to add my guitar into the mix, and I still want to add vocals into here, and I can do that with the Force. It has input jacks, it has phantom power as well, and even my head rush looper board has that as well. I could have the outputs coming out of the MPC into the Force, create 4 audio tracks for each corresponding track, MIDI track that I have, and I can literally route the audio or the MIDI that's triggering here to send the audio to those audio tracks and actually make loops if I wanted to just improvise parts of the song, right? So the Force, like I said, is a monster, right? Akai, I know this is pretty long, but Akai, you need to update this as soon as possible, because it's a lot of people out here that love this machine, that can do a lot of crazy things with it, and they just need that latest update. A lot of the latest things that was put into the live could easily be put in here and can easily take this to another level, or whatever they have planned for it, I believe will make this even more of a monster than what it is and make it even more legendary. So with that, hopefully you like the setup. I do plan on in the future doing lessons, just kind of like breaking down common things like composition, patterns, and how you can build up your performances, or even, you know, your beats and stuff, either to perform live or to actually do productions with the Akai Force. So with that, oh, anybody in the comment section, if you could help me out, if you could show me how I'm able to trigger program changes into the MPC, into the different synth engines from the Force, that would be godsend, and it will help tremendously, because I don't want to menu dive if possible. I just want to focus on this and make whatever I make and just play. And then, you know, control the different parameters. And hopefully you enjoy it. So with that, Mike Venus out. Enjoy, and I'll be back.